anticipation. It can sometimes feel a little nerve-wracking. Imagine you are about to receive one of the biggest pieces of news in your life. Maybe it's the results of a medical test, or the sex of an unborn child, a college decision, results of a big job interview. Would you rather hear that type of information alone or surrounded by people that know and love you? Like a groom yearns for a bride, Atul. A bat mitzvah on the eve of the big day, Kaylee. The Jewish people were feeling very anxious in the Torah portion this week. I want you to picture the biblical scene. The Israelites are camped opposite Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. They have just escaped Egypt. They are finally a free people. And while they long so badly to be a free people, they now realize that life outside of slavery is not perfect either. Consider their expectations, how anticipation about what would happen next mounted as they waited, like you, for words of Torah. Kaylee, you see how I'm going really, really slow to make a dramatic effect? Okay. Physically, the Israelites are a people, a collection of families and different tribes. It's like Congregation Micah. But as they stand at the foot of the mountain, waiting for God to reveal God's self, they're about to add a whole new dimension to their nation, a spiritual, religious aspect of peoplehood, i.e. the actual Torah itself. The text says, Vayavo'u midbar Sinai. They came to the wilderness of Sinai. Vayikanu bamidbar. They camped in the wilderness. Vayikan sham Yisrael. Israel camped there. So from the English translation, it's hard to notice, but in the first two statements, the narrative is told in the plural. Ooh, they did this. Ooh, they did that. In the third statement, the verb camped is written in the singular. Gotta love biblical Hebrew and its grammar. They refer to Israel as a nation as a whole, but why? The sages say they were finally of one heart. They were at peace with one another. Now use your imaginations. Imagine a country at peace with itself. What that must be like. And then an intense dramatic scene, smoke and thunder and lightning and like blasts of the shofar. I'm not really doing it justice, but fiery spiritual moment sent conveniently this Shabbos to offset that winter weather we've been experiencing. The fire of Torah and the warmth of the Sabbath and of community, surrounded by people who know and love you, and by strangers from other tribes, all engaged in a spiritual endeavor. The revelation at Mount Sinai, the central episode not only of the Torah portion, but of Judaism as a whole, was unique in the religious history of humankind. Like other faiths, Christianity and Islam specifically, they claim to be religions of revelation. But in both cases, the revelation of which they speak was to an individual. Only Judaism's revelation was God's self-disclosure to an entire nation. Not an individual, not a group of elders. Young and old, men, women, children, the wealthy, the needy, the righteous and the not yet righteous. A collection of individuals, tribes, a collection of people, just like Congregation Micah. From the very outset, the people of Israel knew something unprecedented had happened in the wilderness at Mount Sinai. As Moses put it 40 years later, Ki sha'alna liyamim rishonim asher hayu lefanecha. When you ask about the days that have gone by before you, lemin hayom asher bara Elohim adam al haaret, ever since God created humankind on earth, ulamiktseh hashamayim va'ad kitseh hashamayim, from one end of heaven to the other, chanchiyach hadavar hagadol hazeh o hanishma kamochu, has anything as grand as this ever happened? Has its likeness ever been known? Hashamayim im kol Elohim midbar mitocha eish. Has any people heard the voice of a God speaking out of a fire? Ka'asher shamata ata b'chayi, as you have and survived? The authenticity of a revelation experienced by one person, that could be questioned. Witnessed by millions? It's kind of why we're still talking about it today. Looking at the history of humankind since those days, there is another significance to this event, one that has to do not with religious experience, but with politics, and American politics in particular. At Sinai, a new kind of nation was being formed, a new kind of society, one that would be the antithesis of Egypt, in which few had power and many were enslaved. At Sinai, the children of Israel ceased to be a group of individuals and became for the first time a body politic, a nation of citizens under the sovereignty of this one God whose written constitution was the Torah and whose mission was to be, quote, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Even today, standard works on the history of political thought trace it back through Marx and Rousseau and Hobbes to Plato's Republic and Aristotle's Politics and the Greek city-state, Athens in particular, in the 4th century before the Common Era. And that's old, but it's a serious error. I mean, words like democracy, rule by the people, they're Greek in origin. The Greeks were gifted, no doubt. But look at the birth of the modern, at figures like Milton, Hobbes, Locke, and England, the founding fathers of our country, America. The book with which they were in dialogue was not Plato. It was not Aristotle. It was the Hebrew Bible. Hobbes quotes it like more than 650 times in the Leviathan alone. Long before Greek philosophers, and far more profoundly, at Mount Sinai, the concept of a free society was born. Long before Israel entered the Holy Land and acquired their own system of government, first by judges and later by kings, they set moral limits to the exercise of power. The code we call Torah established for the first time the primacy of right over might. Any king who behaved contrary to the Torah could be challenged. This is the single most important fact about biblical politics. And many of us still hold this value to be true as Americans. Democracy on the Greek model always had a fatal weakness. The rule of the majority contains no guarantee of the rights of the minorities. But in Judaism, by contrast, and especially at Micah, the prophets, for instance, were mandated to challenge the authority of the king if he acted against the terms of the Torah. Individuals were empowered to disobey immoral orders. For this alone, the covenant at Sinai deserves to be seen as the single greatest step in the long road to a free society. Plus, the people signified their consent. And if they didn't, the revelation would not have proceeded. There's no legitimate government without the consent of the governed, even if the governed is the creator of heaven and earth. I know a few more radical ideas anywhere. And at the heart of Judaism is this idea, way ahead of its time, not fully realized, that a free God wants the free worship of free human beings and equally ahead of its time, was that the partners of the covenant were to be all the people, men, women, and children. The Torah states specifically the entire people is to be gathered for the ceremony. 1,000 years after that, when Athens experimented with democracy, only a limited section of society had political rights. Women, children, slaves, foreigners, they weren't included. In America, women didn't get the vote until the 20th century, and it was Tennessee that made it happen. The Torah, Israel's Constitution of Liberty, includes everyone. Like membership at Micah, citizenship is conceived as being universal. With the revelation at Sinai, something unprecedented entered human existence. It was always on the horizon, and it would take centuries, millennia, before its full implications were understood. Abraham Lincoln, he said it great. He said, quote, "A new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all of us are created equal." Not with equal skill, but with equal worth. At Sinai, the politics of freedom was born. And these laws, they are woven into the very fabric of our tradition and our country. So, as we anticipate what happens next in our nation, in Israel, in Nashville, in our community, in our own families and in our own lives, and all the feelings that come with thinking about the future, know this: there is wisdom to be found in the fire of Torah. And like our ancestors who experienced something magical together in the wilderness, there is power in surrounding ourselves with people who know us and love us, as well as some well-intended strangers, so that we might all feel the warmth of community and be nourished by a tradition and a Torah that's meant to help us feel a little less anxious. Shabbat Shalom.